Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday and welcome to Morning Gathering. Thank you for joining us this morning. I'm really happy to be here with you guys. Let's start out as we often do by taking 3 deep breaths. I invite you to take them with me. Okay, so we have a new virtue this month, which is wisdom. One definition of wisdom is the quality of having experience, knowledge, and good judgment. And I've been thinking about experience lately as it relates to this season we're in of staying home and social distancing from one another. Experiencing the seasons every year gives us the wisdom to know that seasons are finite time periods, right? We know that winter will turn to spring and spring will turn to summer. We know this because it happens every single year. When we were last together at Willow on March 13th, it was still pretty cold outside. I remember greeting you guys in car line wearing mittens and everyone had warm coats on. And the trees by the forts didn't have leaves yet. The grass on the soccer field was still a muddy mess. And though there was a hint that the daffodils were just starting to bloom outside the Health and Wellness Center, they were still tight little buds and hadn't opened up. But while we've been home, we've experienced the arrival of springtime. One of my very favorite things to do in the springtime is watch this awesome family of foxes that moves in under the shed in my backyard. They don't live there all year. They just move in the winter to protect their new babies. And I know it's springtime when the babies come out and start playing in my backyard. This year, there were 6 baby foxes living under my shed, which is more than I have ever had before. And every afternoon at 4:30 in the afternoon, the babies, which are called kits, would come out to play. Their mom would come out with them, very proud and vigilant, and she would watch them making sure that they were safe. So here are 5 of my 6 baby foxes playing in my backyard on a sunshiny day. And here's Mom. She can see me in my living room through the window with my big zoom lens on my camera. I didn't want to go any closer than that because I didn't want them to leave. And she brought something yummy for them to eat that day. You can see that her baby that's behind her is chewing on a bone of some sort. They come out of this big hole under my shed and they pounce like puppies. You can see the one on the left is getting ready to pounce on his brothers or sisters who are playing on the right. They were so fun to watch. She's a good mom. The experience of watching these foxes and knowing that spring has arrived reminds me of the wisdom that I've gained watching the seasons pass over the years, and it reminds me that this season that we are in right now too shall pass. So I thought that I would read this morning the story of Fletcher and the springtime blossoms because it reminds me of the foxes in my yard. And perhaps we will see at the end that Fletcher has gained some wisdom of his own. The woods were full of the chirping, bustling, sing-song sounds of spring. Fletcher bounced along with his nose in the air, sniffing the just burst buds of flowers and playing chase with butterflies, with his head spinning with sights and sounds. He tumbled happily down the hill into the sunny orchard, but when he picked himself up from the ground, he couldn't believe his eyes. A soft breeze danced through the branches, carrying snowy flakes. Snow so late in spring, thought Fletcher. It will be too cold for the buds and the butterflies. There's no time to lose. Looking for someone to tell, he trotted back up the hill and past a pair of birds coo-cooing on a branch. "You've flown to your summer home too soon," Fletcher cried. "I've been down to the orchard and there's more snow on the way." "Then we should fly back south," they called. "But first we must tell Porcupine. He's just come out of his bed of leaves. He needs to snuggle back down or he'll freeze." Fletcher and the birds found Porcupine stretching and scratching. "There's snow on the way," panted Fletcher. "I saw it in the orchard. It will be too cold for the butterflies." The birds will need to fly south, and you must hide away. Then I should crawl back into my bed, snuffled Porcupine sadly. But first we must tell Squirrel that he needs to hunt for food. He's eaten his winter store of nuts. He'll need to find some more. Fletcher, the birds, and Porcupine found Squirrel scampering after sunbeams. Snow is blowing in from the orchard, gasped Fletcher. It will be too cold for the butterflies. The birds will need to fly south. Poor Porcupine must go back to bed, and you must find some food. You're right. I've eaten my spring feast, said Squirrel, and my stores are gone. But before I hunt for more, we need to tell the rabbits to munch as much grass as they can before the snow falls. Fletcher, the birds, Porcupine, and Squirrel hurried off again. The rabbits were rolling down the hill next to their burrow. Stop playing, cried Fletcher. There's snow blowing in from the orchard. It will be too cold for the butterflies. The birds will need to fly south. Poor Porcupine must go back to bed. Squirrel needs to find food, and you must munch more grass. Before we eat, said the rabbits, staggering dizzily to their feet. Let's go and play in the snow. So the rabbits, hoppity-roly-poly, plopped down the hill through the woods. They were chased by Squirrel, Porcupine, the birds, and a bouncy, full of importance fox all the way to the orchard, where the ground was white with blossoms. Blossoms bobbing in the branches, blossoms blowing in the breeze, blossoms blanketing the ground, and not a snowflake to be found. Those are blossoms, not snow, you foolish fox, the animals cried. Fletcher blinked and rubbed his eyes, feeling very silly. But then the animals scooped up pawfuls and clawfuls of blossoms from the ground and covered him in a tickly shower of fluttering white petals. Fletcher and his friends ran and played between the trees until at last they all collapsed in a blossomy, soft, white heap. Then the birds fluttered back to their branch with beakfuls of blossoms to line their nest. Porcupine snuffled off up the slope, his quills dotted with tiny white petals. Squirrel went chasing up and down trees after snow-white petals dancing in the breeze. And the rabbits bounced back up the hill with blossoms to brighten their burrow. But Fletcher just lay smiling in his soft bed of petals, watching the blossoming branches bobbing overhead. So I thought today we would sing one of our favorites, All God's Critters, in honor of Fletcher and his friends.
Some just clap their hands or paws or fins or claws, anything they got now. Listen to the bass, it's the one on the bottom where the bullfrog puts on the hippopotamus moans and groans and the pig to do, and the old cow just goes moo. All God's critters got a place in the choir. Some sing low and some sing higher, and some sing out loud on the telephone wire. Some just clap their hands or paws, fins or claws, or anything they got now. The dogs and the cats, they take up the middle where the hummingbird hums, and the cricket fiddles, and the donkey plays, and the pony moves, and the old coyote howls. All God's critters got a place in the choir. Some sing low and some sing high, and some sing out loud on the telephone wire. Some just clap their hands or paws, their fins, their claws, or anything they got now.
Have a wonderful day, everyone.